Okay, well, let's get started. I see a few more people hopping on now. Carl's on. And Mark, hello. Sabrina and Veronica. So let's go ahead and get started. If you're just joining us, you can call in by phone. Everyone is muted, but if you'd like to speak, you can press *6 to mute and unmute your phone. Because everyone is in their offices and working, we've chosen to mute everyone all at once so that you don't have to worry about whether background noise is coming from you. You can all know that any annoying background noise is coming from me. But I'll also try to mute my phone when I'm not talking. And if you'd like to participate in the chat, of course, you can put questions there. Megan is with us this morning.
Hello, everyone. Good morning.
And she'll be keeping an eye on the chat while I facilitate the panel and peer sharing portion at the end. And of course, if you are, it'll be a little bit free-flowing. Webinars are often a straightforward kind of instructional training, and we're hoping to use it, you know, in the same spirit as we do the cohort trainings or the CDPH training and networking meeting, of having you be able to hear from some of your colleagues in the field and then having an opportunity to talk to one another about strategies and challenges and ideas. This has been really useful in the past, so we're trying to find a way to do it in between times. And so, you know, not being able to see one another in a group discussion might be a little clunky, and we'll try to make it work the best we can and streamline a little more for next time if we can find better ways to coordinate conversation. In the meantime, if you're not being able to jump in with what you'd like to contribute, please raise your hand or put it in the chat, and we'll be able to make sure that we get to you. And so, so let's see. This is Jessie, Town Cardenas with Calcasa. Megan is also here. And so today we're going to talk about bystander intervention. Not everybody has bystander intervention as their identified strategy, but a lot of people, including when I was running the program, are including bystander intervention strategies, which have shown to be promising practices. And we have some research coming out now on programs like Green Dot and bringing in the bystander that are showing some efficacy on college campuses and high school campuses. So we'll give you a list of resources, and maybe those will come up later. But we're going to have, so we've chosen 3 programs that of your colleagues in the field that are focused on bystander intervention. We're going to hear from them. Then we're going to have some open discussion, peer sharing with just some guided questions in case we need them. And then we'll close down, we'll make a few announcements, and of course we'll send you a follow-up survey after, which we do always look at. And in that follow-up survey, we'll ask you about what kinds of other topics you'd like to have on these webinars. We'll be doing these every other month. They are not required, but we hope that when they relate to the program that you're providing in your communities, we hope that when they relate to you, you'll jump on with us and share your ideas with your colleagues. So with that, I want to talk about our panel, folks. I keep pressing the wrong button on my computer to forward the slides. So on our panel today, we have Araceli Hernandez from Valley Crisis Center, who works on college campus, Nancy Ramsey from Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Coalition in Nevada County, and Paula Arrowsmith-Jones at North Coast Rape Crisis Team. And all of them have have distinct bystander intervention programs that are also different from one another. So we thought they would give you a nice mix. And I think it's also, it's worth noting we're RPE programs. We may have some guests on today from CDPH's Teen Dating Violence Prevention Program who are also doing some bystander intervention strategies. But I think it's worth noting that Paula's program, her bystander intervention program, has a long history in her area on the college campus, but it's not funded by the RPE program. It's funded by campus grants to reduce violence, but it's very in line with the goals and requirements of the RPE program. So, so while we want to mention that it's a different funding source, it's very similar strategies and goals. So with that, I am going to I'm going to get started with the panel members. And if you have a question, again, you can put it in the chat. You can raise your hand, and we'll be watching that. So let's see, who's first? We're going to be starting with Nancy at DVSEC. So Nancy, I'm going to pass the floor to you, and you'll be able to move forward the slides with the little arrows, and I'll let you introduce yourself.
Okay, hi, I'm Nancy Ramsey. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, good. All righty. Let's see, I was going to go question by question of the 4 questions, starting with a little history as to how we ended up doing bystander education. In 2010, 4 staff members attended a sexual assault conference in Hollywood, and one of the staff members attended a workshop on Green Dot Bystander Education by Dr. Dorothy Edwards, and she's the person who created that curriculum. And frankly, I just got kind of tired of listening to the staff member. That's all she talked about for days and weeks on end was this incredible program. So I called David Lee and said, how do we get trained in Green Dot? This person has convinced us all it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. So in 2011, CDPH put in a competitive grant, and one of the 8 agencies were chosen to pilot Green Dot, and we were one of the 8. And we were all trained. They brought the folks from Virginia out here to train us, and we had our strategies, and everything was ready to go. And then CDPH funding were cut, and we had to put everything on hold. But we always knew we were going to do Green Dot and held on to that. And then in the 2014-18 RPE contract, we finally had the money to be able to implement Green Dot. And I was thinking about this obviously all day yesterday. And then last night on my way home, I asked myself and my puppy, Shasta, who was riding in the car with me, why Green Dot? You know, really, why this particular one did we choose? And the answer really came to me right away. The Green Dot curriculum is research informed by the latest research and is really a synthesis of many disciplines such as psychology, sociology, marketing, diffusion theory, and it produces exquisite simplicity. It starts where each person is. It takes into consideration each person's own personality. It uses very simple analogy of red dots equal bad, green dots equal good. There are 3 simple things to remember as a bystander: direct, delegate, and distract. It reinforces our responsibility as a human being on this planet, that by doing nothing, no choice is in fact a choice, and that none of us have to do everything, but everyone has to do something. And as Jesse just said, they just released, and thank you, Jesse, for sending that to me. I hadn't seen it yet. The American Journal of Preventive Medicine just released a research article on testing bystander effectiveness to reduce violence. And the study evaluated the Green Dot intervention in over a period of 5 years at 26 high schools. and a total of 89,707 students completed the anonymous surveys, and they indicated a 17 to 21% reduction. So the conclusion was that implementation of Green Dot Kentucky High School significantly decreased not only sexual violence perpetration, but also personal violence. We follow the format of Green Dot, where you use the power of influential peers to build the initial program. We surveyed students, and actually this year the vice principal sent out the survey electronically to the students, juniors and seniors in the high school, that asked them what students most influenced them at school. And most of the time it isn't the kids in student council and all. It's, just random kids they hang with, and it depends on what group you hang with. So we get a cross-section of students, and common student names rise to the top. So then the peer prevention coordinator and the prevention team goes into and meets those students one-on-one. The schools release those kids one-on-one to us, and they meet with them, establish and build a relationship with them, and talk about the role of leadership and the influence that they have over people and the responsibility that comes with that. One particular kid was a heavy-duty influence, but he was a negative influencer. And the prevention coordinator was actually able to, air quotes, flip him or turn him. She talked to him about his influence, and would he not instead like to influence his peers for good. And he became an absolute believer in the Green Dot training. So that was so exciting. Principal was very excited about that too. And then they asked the kids that they've interviewed one at a time to commit to the 6-hour bystander training. And the school grants field trip status to the training so kids aren't impacted by not being in school for the day. We also have a peer-to-peer leadership club on one of the campuses, and many of them have attended bystander training, and then they go into the classrooms and give overview speeches to their peers and get them excited about Green Dot, and then they also sign up for the bystander training. We've given overview speeches to other clubs like the Social Justice Club and Ecology Club. We collaborated with a youth organization in town for a summer Expect Respect leadership program, and they created an outreach activity that they presented to people at the Nevada County Fair. And they created kind of what some people called it a magical tent, and it was a consent tea, and they served tea to people as they sit down and watch the video. And then we got a chance to talk about Green Dot there too. And we've actually woven Green Dot into everything we do. We have in our hallways a big Green Dot post, several Green Dot posters, and a place on the wall that people write their Green Dot stories. People, different clients that come in for our crisis center, visitors that come in and read about Green Dot and decide when they come back to write their story on there. So that's been a fun thing. We do 3-part presentations to specific schools that call us, and we do 3 parts to the same class. The first session is healthy relationships and red flags. The second one is on consent, and the third one is on Green Dot. So they're not getting the full 6-hour training, but they're getting enough information that they can use it and then often want to go to the 6-hour training. Challenges we faced. Our first challenge was not having the funding to launch the program, and then we had the funding, but the principal who signed the MOU left, and the new principal was just really kind of afraid to launch a program he didn't know anything about. So we quickly rebalanced and went to another high school. And in the meantime, we worked with him, and now he is just like the biggest cheerleader for Green Dot that one could ever ask for. So our only really challenge has been our luck in retaining prevention coordinators. Our coordinator of 6 years had to leave the agency on medical leave. And then our next one was so fabulous and so amazing that she ended up being offered a job at the Nevada County Public Health Department, making a lot more money and a lot of benefits. The only upside about that is she's doing prevention for alcohol, drug prevention. And so we are now doing collaborations with her so that we could also introduce Green Dot into that mix. And she has access to all the middle schools that currently we don't have programs there. We did for 5 years, but we don't under our current grant. So at least that's been an upside to that challenge. And the downside of Green Dot is you can't train any students or community members unless you've been trained by Green Dot themselves, and they're in Virginia. So every time I've lost a staff member in prevention, I've had to send them back to Virginia. So that gets a little costly. How I'm overcoming challenges is that I have a vision that because we're so incredibly excited about Green Dot and have been, that's not gone away since 2010, and because the schools here are so incredibly excited about Green Dot, and we keep getting calls from other schools, agencies, parents, that my vision is to actually bring the Green Dot trainers to our community. That's their preference. I think they've seen over the years that it really works better to work with a community because it's sustainable. So Green Dot wouldn't belong to DVSAC. It would belong to all of Western Nevada County. I've just started vocalizing this vision, and I am amazed at the response I'm getting, including somebody from our satellite. We have a community college satellite campus here in town, and somebody came up to me after a talk I did and said, you know, we might be able to put Title IX money towards this. And we'd like to see this happen, and maybe even in Rockland, which is outside of Sacramento, that maybe they could come at the same time. So I'm really excited about that. I'm encouraged by that. We did our first Green Dot training for adults in January. We had a couple of ministers and a couple of teachers and interested parents, kind of a nice mix of people. There were 20 people in the room. We're hoping when Green Dot trainers can come out here, that we'll have law enforcement officers, a lot of teachers attend. I know of at least one county supervisor who would like to attend. So I'm really excited about that. And
hey, Nancy, I'm going to interrupt for 1 second to give you a four-minute warning, and I want to know if you would like me to advance your slides.
Sure. And they're just random pictures that
okay, so you can do it when you're ready, unless you want me to
I don't know
while you're talking. Okay, I'll go through
how.
them while you're talking.
Okay, super.
Like a slideshow. Okay, thanks.
So I'm almost done. I remember telling David Lee in 2010 when we first were Green Dot trained, I know we can turn this community upside down with Green Dot, and now I'm starting to feel like that just might happen. Top 3 tips, actually have a few. A long-time prevention coordinator that went out on medical leave has just recently come back to us to do the Green Dot trainings again. And she said spending time connecting with the students prior to training was invaluable, that it creates a sense of safety from the very beginning. Meeting people where they're at from a place of non-judgment, that they determine their line in the sand or starting point for action. Authentic disclosure, being human is a challenge and we're all in the same boat. And admitting that all of us have struggles with jokes and reluctance to cause a scene or interrupt anybody, and that your presence matters. Each one of our presence matter in this world. And then I would say perseverance. Like any prevention field, results are not seen immediately. Not expecting everything to be the same with students from one school to another or from one year to the next. And real commitment to the socio-ecological model. If you are, you can see how bystander education goes from the individual to their friends, to their school, to the community, and to the greater community. And that bystander education gives people something to actually do, and it gives people hope. That when I used to go out and talk to groups about our intervention services, people would look like, by the time I was done, like they wanted to crawl under the table. And now I start with saying, we know things that really work, and before I'm done here, I will tell you about our prevention program. And so it always leaves people with the hope that we can make a real change in turning interpersonal violence around. So that's my presentation. And thank you very much for being there.
Thank you, Nancy. I don't think I went through your slides fast enough, but are there any quick questions for Nancy? We'll have time at the end, but I also, if you have a burning question right now, please feel free to ask it in the chat. There's the consent T tent.
And I forgot to say that the peer-to-peer students, they do the overview speeches in their classes. They do a lot of things. They create skits and green dot skits and video them and show them on the closed caption TV that is in all the classrooms. They infuse it into all of their awareness campaigns. So having those students take the lead is exciting, and it really gives them lots of leadership opportunities to grow in.
Yeah, so it utilizes those peer influencers a lot, and that's kind of a term that people use, and there's some different work going on looking at peer influencers, of course in bystander intervention, but also in other, media messaging and things like that. So yeah. So thank you, Nancy. So we're going to move on, and I'm going to introduce Paula Aerosmith-Jones, who's going to talk about the Check It program on their campus. And Paula, I'll interrupt you for time checks. But other than that, I'm handing it over to you. And if you need some help with your slides, I think you've got it. But you can just let us know.
Okay, thank you.
So take it away, Paula.
Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm really happy to be here with all of you and tell you a little bit about the Check It program that we have going at Humboldt State University, and soon we'll be replicating in some high schools up here, a similar program. So as it says there on that first slide, what we wanted to do was change culture. And I want to credit Green Dot. Some of the aspects of Check It, with their permission, were drawn from concepts of Green Dot. It was actually at a Green Dot training. Myself and a prevention coordinator from HSU decided that we didn't want to select Green Dot, but we wanted to create our own program. and I wrote "Check It" on a napkin, and that was the beginning of how it got its name. And where we went from there is an amazing story. As was said, we are not funded for this through RPE, but through a campus grant. And Check It is designed to address sexualized violence, of course, but also intimate partner violence and stalking. So it ties in really neatly and closely with the Title IX work that we're also doing. So we wanted to design a bystander program that really suited our particular campus community. To do that, you see we wanted to use the bystander approach to change culture. We wanted it to be grounded in peer education, knowing our campus. The only way the message would be heard would be if it was perceived as student-led, student-manifested. So I want to say that laying the groundwork for Check It, North Coast Rape Crisis Team, myself in particular, were critical in all of that. And then as it's gone on, we're now just celebrated 3 years. We've intentionally continued to be crucially involved, but less visible. That has to do with believing that the students on our particular campus really respond best when the perception is that students themselves are at the forefront. And I want to say it's not just a perception. They are at the forefront, and they've done amazing work. We wanted to really harness the power of that peer-to-peer influence and use social marketing and community building in ways that really engage students and change norms. So out of that, the Check It movement was born. We spent some months starting its development and then allowing students to really take leadership in developing the look of it and the strategies, and of course held with our advisory role as well as some campus partner advisory role. Challenges we faced at the very beginning had to do with buy-in, needing that from the administration and from folks on campus, finding the students that would become part of the beginning of Check It, and thinking about not just the resources we had through the campus grant, but if we were going to develop this, how would we sustain it over time? So to get to this Check It as a movement, and knowing that we wanted it to reach everybody on campus, we drew on some real strong committee work that we'd been doing actually for decades, but particularly over the last 10 years. And I want to say to anybody that's just starting a program on a campus where you haven't been working, to be really gentle with yourselves about how much time it can take. That this Check It didn't just emerge in a vacuum. It was built on a lot of work that we had done prior to that. And so we think of Check It as a movement and wanting to reach out across the entire campus. There at the bottom of that slide, you'll see a little dog named Juno, and she was with the student who was recognized at the White House last year for her role in really manifesting Check It in a big way. And we've had a lot of national recognition, which has been really wonderful. We also think of Check It as a verb, in other words, what I do. And you'll see a couple of examples of students across the campus who, and these images were put into a really beautiful video that is shown at different events and things, that is each person saying why they check it. And we also think of Check It as a moment, the moment in which one might be able to interrupt harm. Witnessing or being aware of an absence of consent, a potential moment of harm, a high-risk situation, anything that just doesn't feel quite right, and then wanting to empower people with knowing that there might be something that they can do, so breaking down that kind of helplessness that sometimes people might feel. Now we knew to do all of this that, of course, it was going to be really critical to build a critical mass, to move from the conversation about sexualized violence on campus from the small corners out across the whole community. So the way that we did that was to build what was our launch team, and it started out with 5 people and became 50 people who were identified influential student leaders. And on our campus, as I'm sure a lot of other places, diversity was critically important. So it meant reaching out to places like the Academic Centers of Excellence for African Americans, for Latino and Latina students, reaching out to the Queer Resource Center, reaching out to sororities and fraternities, reaching out beyond the edges of the conversations that had already been taking place and trying to reach a broader group of people. We also decided when we were launching that the original launch, and I'd say for sure the first year of Check It, that everything was intentionally handmade and real grassroots looking. And the reason that we did that rather than a more professional, slicker look is because we know the culture of our campus. And if it looked too professionally done, in the beginning, students would not have responded to it, and we knew that not only by knowing them for a long time, but also through doing some kind of trial stuff and some surveys. And they really needed, it needed to be, a lot of stuff needed to be, say, in a zine style and really kind of handcrafted. That has changed somewhat over the years. Now that Check It is really a part of the community, we've been able to kind of move beyond that in some ways, but the languaging and the messaging still, it's really important that it's student language centered. We wanted Check It to be really highly visible on campus, so again there was all kinds of events and parties and all outreach strategies. The very first thing that happened before anybody knew what Check It was we got permission from the administration to cover the campus in great big green check marks in classrooms, on the clock tower, on the top of buildings, little check marks hanging from trees. And this was a group of students who went out in the night and did all of this. And of course that required administration support because they were allowed to do some stuff that normally they wouldn't be. But that administration support was not seen and perceived by the campus, so it really looked like kind of a flash mob type approach to, you know, getting people to ask, what are these check marks? What is Check It? Which led then to being able to start communicating what our frameworks were, that it was student-centered and supported, that it was coming from a place of survivor-centeredness as a priority, that it was inclusive in terms of genderqueer inclusivity, which is essential on our campus, and that it was grounded in a social justice and intersectional oppression lens, that it met people where they were and positioned every person as a potential ally, empowering them with skills to be able to bring that about. That it needed to use accessible language that was easily identifiable. That's why the name Check It and the check mark has been so helpful, is that, you know, somebody can just say to another person, hey, let's check it, and they know what they're talking about. So to accomplish all of that, we sort of have broken it into 4 components. Skills building workshops of varying lengths, and they are tailored to specific populations. So a kind of second phase of Check It is the Accountable Communities Project, and that's really reaching out to men as allies and going out into male-identified spaces in particular, so tailoring those workshops in ways that the language really suits them. It's also about relationship building. It's about really creative outreach, and the students are just amazing at coming up and more ideas. Recently they developed some of you may know about the game Cards Against Humanity, I think it's called. Check It developed a Cards for Humanity. So the game is played in workshops, and that game gives all kinds of scenarios and choices about being a bystander. There's also a lot of Check It consent-themed parties and events and merchandise that goes along with that. So many different forms of merchandise, and they have things, they have consent-themed bars, which are not providing alcoholic beverages, but using names. So like, for example, instead of martini, it's consent-tini. They have a whole menu. They have lots of fun things. They have the coasters and other items that they are able to give out. And that is, the merchandise is funded partly through the campus grant and also through other funding that the university has kicked in once they saw, and this goes back to addressing challenges, once the university saw the recognition that Check It was gaining and the effect it's having on campus, they became stronger allies in terms of supporting the program. So where are we now? Well, as I said, we just celebrated our 3rd year anniversary. We had a event where over 600 students crowded into a big hall. They danced, they did karaoke, they shared experiences of checking it, and it was really a cross-section of the campus. Where we are right now is a student who was impacted by Check It in a positive way and took a class that North Coast Rape Crisis Team and faculty at HSU developed called ACT in Sexualized Violence class. She came up last year with an idea to what would it be like to have a dorm where it's really focused on a consent culture and really tying Check It to res life. And that is launching in the fall. We already have more students signed up for that housing than can be accepted in this first year. So that's really exciting. Another next step for us is we're replicating, we hope in the fall of 2018, to replicate out to at least one high school using the peer educators, Check It peer educators from HSU to help us get that going in high schools, which the high school students are really excited about having some of the folks from university students working with them. And I also want to mention that another important step is linking Check It and Title IX work together in strategic ways, so making sure that Check It doesn't become known as Title IX work, and yet Check It peer educators and rape crisis peer educators or prevention educators working together when we're requested to do a Title IX training, that we do that, and then we bring the Check It folks in so that we can make another link, a positive link in that way. Tips, and I know I need to end, build your team, identify key administrators, faculty, staff, and especially key students. Really know your community, know what works for them, what the languaging and the messaging should look like. Assessing your campus or school regarding the culture, their way of talking, I think is really important. And allowing things to change and grow while maintaining the core values of your program. So when somebody comes up with a great idea that might not fit within your philosophical framework, really questioning whether to expand in that way or whether to find a way to bring it back to your core values, which we think is really important. And I think I'm out of time.
Yeah, you were perfectly timed, Paula. I thought this was your last slide, so I didn't interrupt you. You didn't need a human timer. All right. Thank you so much.
I hope that was helpful, and I want to say that to anybody listening, if you're interested in looking at some of the products that have been developed, some of the documents that we use, the merchandise, those kinds of things, if you email me and you can if you don't know my email, you can get it through Jesse. There's a lot of stuff that we are making available to campuses across the nation who might want to not then say they're doing Check It, but use it as a guide to develop their own unique program. So taking the ideas and then just using that as a groundwork.
Mm-hmm. Great. And we will be sending out a follow-up resource list with the resources at the end and any that come up, either in the chat or through our discussion, and we will include the emails of each of our panel members. So you'll have that. Thank you. All right. So moving on to our last panel member, I want to introduce Araceli Hernandez, and I will let you take that away. Are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Okay, great. We can hear you. Thank you. And
awesome.
I will give you a time warning if you, in a couple minutes, or when you have a couple minutes left.
All right, sounds good.
All right.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Araceli. I am from Valley Crisis Center. So I am actually located on a college campus. I have an office there, which is awesome because not a lot of these programs are allowed to actually be there. So my office is located on campus. I want to tell you a little bit about the campus. So it's in the Central Valley. There's a large diversity in age. It's a community college. So we have people from fresh out of high school to people that are probably your parents, your grandparents. So it's diverse, although young people are more prevalent. Our campus is located in Merced, but we have a sister branch in Los Banos, which is an hour away. That being said, I'm in charge of both campuses. And we also have another little branch that's located across town. It's the Business Resource Center. So although I am located at the main campus, I am responsible for the other two campuses as well. With that, I am fairly new to the program. I did not start this program like the other wonderful participants. So with that, I started in July. I got glazed over like quick information. So it was that kind of thing where you get thrown in and you need to learn how to swim or else you're going to drown. So with that, we have the Bystander Intervention program in our own way that we created it, but we really do focus on the 3Ds. So as you all know, direct, distract, and delegate. And there's many different ways that we engage our students in doing it. But first off, I want to say that we have peer educators. So we have students that are trained, and they're the ones that are really involved in this. So with that, in the beginning, it was pretty bad. I didn't have anyone except for one student, and she went off. So she graduated. So one of my struggles has been getting people involved. So this semester I do have students involved, but the issue is that, you know, everyone's schedule is different. Our school is a commuter school. People don't really hang around on campus. So it's important to note that it is kind of difficult to get volunteers involved. But one of the techniques that I have used is not only that you're creating a change, but you're also helping increase your own resume, right? So you're getting experience. So with that, our peer educators, they engage in presentations. So I have trained them. They go and do classroom presentations. They talk about being an engaged bystander, but also going over like red flags. And then we have also worked on different posters and brochures. So if we could flip my PowerPoint one over, that would be great. So this is a brochure. Sorry, it's kind of like weird formatted. But we give these out to students, whether it's in a classroom presentation or we're tabling. So essentially it has an overview of information. We always have this engaged bystander media campaign, and we get students to be involved. So this is one of them for this year. We have Philip Rose from the Los Banos campus. And the whole point is to show people how you can be an engaged bystander, like give a real life example. So with Philip's example, it was we were walking to class when my friend mentioned that if their partner loved them, they would do anything for them, even if their partner didn't want to. I explained to my friend that forcing their partner it's so small, but basically pressuring or making them feel guilty is coercion, and coercion is never consent. And so I asked Philip, why did you choose this? And he's also realized, because I've realized this is a problem on our campus, but he's also realized it as well. So he wanted other students to be aware of that. So Philip is one of our peer educators. And within this pamphlet, we also have community resources. So if people need to contact someone directly, they have that information at hand, but also letting them understand what sexual violence is and what survivors experience and how they can help their friend. But most importantly, we discuss bystander engagement, letting them know what the bystander effect is, what they can do to be engaged bystanders, and of course, our agency information. So with that, if you could continue on one more, we post these around campus. So here's another one, Kim. I was at the bar when I saw my friend looked uncomfortable. I knew that my friend had been drinking, and I did not want anyone to take advantage of her. I went over and asked my friend to get another drink with me, but instead of getting another drink, we decided to leave the bar. So these are our media campaigns that we have been posting around campus. It started before I came on this position, and it's just been continuous. So every year we have a new one, and it's, in my opinion and the opinion of my peer educators, it's been effective because students are seeing other students on these posters, and it's like it hones it in and makes it seem more personal. With that too, what I've encountered with this whole movement, a lack of interest from students in general about being an engaged bystander, whether it be they just don't care or they don't know how to fully approach it, because you can give someone the 3Ds, but everyone's different and they approach things differently. So another issue was that I had a specific school administrator that did not support the whole bystander intervention. So some of the ways that I address these issues, first off, with the lack of interest, letting these students really understand that, okay, hey, you may not think sexual assault affects you directly, but you probably know someone that does. Like, you may see it in the news and it seems like it's happening far away, but it's happening close at home, and it may be someone you know. And that's when they realize, like, hey, like, I can do something about it. So with this whole program, what I've really had to learn is it's not my job to empower students. My job is to give them the resources to make them realize how much power they have themselves. Because what I've realized over these past months is that students don't realize how much power they have to make that difference. But once you let them know, like, hey, you have that power, you can make this a safe community, not only for yourself, your friends, your classmates, and I don't know why, but they get so pumped up because they realize, like, how much power they have. So it's really important to encourage them and let them know that they really have this power to make that difference. As for the school administrator, it was just a lack of understanding. So when we talk about being direct, for example, we say it doesn't have to be confrontational. It could just be a simple question like, hey, are you okay, or is everything okay? So with the school administrator, there was like a miscommunication. I had a hiccup with one of my peer educators, and so they didn't really fully inform this administrator. So they thought that it was like directly intervening, as in getting involved in the fight, and on a campus, that's a liability issue for the college, right? So I just had to reassure them that that's not what we're encouraging, that we encourage people to prevent any sort of violence, but primarily sexual violence, but always keeping their safety in mind, because that is something that we always tell our students. to keep your safety in mind. And so what's really important is for us to really, pay attention to our students. Like mentioned before, know your campus. What's worked for us as well is kind of bringing in pop culture and tying it in with like the bystander effect. So, I mean, it doesn't have to fully be focused on the bystander effect. What I mean is like we had a Pokemon themed event previously. So if you know about Pokemon Go, you have to go to different Pokestops to collect items. So with our event, we did a Pokemon Go theme. So the students had to check in and go to these Pokestops where they learned different things about being engaged bystanders, etc. And then at the end, they checked in and got raffle tickets for a prize. So this year, if capacity allows, we want to do a superhero theme, right? Because Marvel is like a big thing right now. So maybe a theme such as like you can be the hero in preventing sexual violence. So tying pop culture in because our youth like that kind of stuff, but also it could be as simple as buttons. So with my grant, I cannot buy freebies like giveaways, and it's unfortunate because college students like free stuff, especially food, but I can't do that. So the way we handle that is we have a button maker. So we make our design and then create our buttons. And so I was at a webinar not too long ago, and there was a school down south that created their buttons for Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month out of memes. And so I brought this to the attention to our peer educators, and they love that idea. So I don't know if y'all are up to date with current events, but there's some stuff, for example, the guy that throws salt or the girl that says, catch me outside, how about that? So the whole point is using and changing them, right? So we were thinking about something like step up and speak out about sexual violence, how about that? And then the guy that's like throwing like salt, put little red teal ribbons, and then Sexual Assault Awareness Month, support survivors, something like that. So really like just tying in pop culture, and if it's like negative in any way, flipping it so it grabs students' attention like, hey, what's this about? But then they realize like, oh, okay, something positive. So it's really worked out. And one of the major issues that I had when I first started was engaging men. And I'm not going to lie to you all, it was difficult, but with that Pokemon Go event, it was so like intriguing to them. So I really learned how to navigate around to make them interested as well. So with all of that, I also want to say that be aware of your the language you use. So if you want to have you want to talk about sexual violence and being an engaged bystander, you have to really change the language. Because if you talk about, I'm going to hold a workshop about sexual violence, nobody's going to come. You have to do something like healthy relationships workshop, and then people come, and then they realize, oh, okay, it's a little bit more, but I'm glad I'm here. And with all of this, I know you can see on the screen it says Inspire, so if you can flip one more on my PowerPoint, that'd be great. So this is the last one I have. Our program is Inspire. So I run the program. It stands for Inviting Students to Promote Prevention, Intervention, and Rape Education. So we actually have these hashtags that have not been active. That's another problem that I need to work on, because it'd be so awesome to have these for our campus specifically going. And another major issue that I'm still encountering is that we exist, but not, I don't want to say a lot of people, but there's people that don't know we exist on campus. So it's there, but it's not there. And the major issue that I've been encountering is because the people at my college want me to do all the work, which is great, and I will help you, but eventually our CELI is not going to be there, and you all have to be able to manage this program on your own. So that's one of the big problems I'm going to work on, that, and it's been consistent. But with these posters, I did not do them. I did not have the campus design them. These are designed by the people that do our brochures at our agency. So yeah, and with that, I just want to keep you all encouraged. It can be difficult sometimes. It's hard to measure these things, so I'm not going to lie. Sometimes I even get discouraged. But it's important to know that just keep fighting. You'll realize that you're doing a great job and making a difference, and we really need to celebrate the little victories because we really don't give ourselves enough credit, and it's important that we do that. Yeah, so that's about it. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you so much to Araceli. Does anybody have any questions specifically for Araceli? You can put them in the chat. And I want to, celebrating little victories, yeah. I don't think we do that enough. I like the hashtag, we need a button maker. I love button maker. Thank you to all the panel members. I want to give you an opportunity to ask questions of the panel if you had them before. So you can put them in the chat, or you can use the little hand function up by the phone number to raise your hand. But if nobody has any questions, I want to move on to, so maybe I should pause for a second. You can listen to this old-timey plane go over my head here. They're loud. And give people a minute or less to ask any questions they want. If you'd like to come on with your voice, you will need to press *6 to unmute yourself. Okay. I hear some typing, but so let's move on. This is not, because we're moving on does not mean you cannot ask them a question after this point. Oh, here we go. Resources for evaluation. Struggle with only pre and post surveys. Yeah, that's a good question. Carla's inspired. Okay, so let's move on. I'm gonna come to these. So I want to give a little bit of, we can think about in our peer sharing pieces, and these are kind of, you know, the common questions that I like to ask people, you know, in groups or when I'm talking to folks. So we can think about these for our conversation, but we don't have to ask these or answer these. But thinking about sharing effective strategies with one another. We saw some themes in the last 3 programs about really listening to and being guided by key stakeholders in the messaging, leveraging funding, sharing the work with the campus or with the community, having them share in training, share in delivering the message so that it institutionalizes the message more, and it's not as affected by all those transitions that we know we always have in these programs. So we saw some common themes there, and I've heard some themes as I talk to you all in the cohorts when I get to be with you in person and over the phone, and sometimes some of those challenges are around just getting buy-in that you should intervene, kind of getting past that myth about, you know, it's not my problem, or it's a private thing, it's their thing, or you know, a reliance, sometimes there being an over-reliance in bystander intervention programs on authority figures that aren't always trusted, or safe places to go for some communities. So anyway, this is a time for sharing with one another. And so we're going to figure out the best way to do this as we go on these webinars. But in the meantime, we can start with the chat. You can raise your hand, or you can, and I might call some of you out in the chat so you can unmute your phone with the *6 and speak. So Veronica asked about evaluation tools. And Paula says that evaluations are built into the activities they do, so that kind of reminds me of activity-based evaluation, which I've sent information about to some folks. And these measurement tools are hard to figure out. So let's see. Paula, can you talk about the evaluations built into your activities?
Sorry,
you can press *6 if you're okay, right?
Yeah, so an example, and we do this in all of our programs in some fashion. But so like when I was talking about those Cards for Humanities, the game, so within that game there are scenarios and a range of responses that people choose. And so we're tracking, part of it is observational, and part of it is actually gathering what choices were made in the shareback so that we can look for whether people, first of all, even understood what was presented in the workshop, whether they gained skills that they didn't already have, because built into the activity is asking if this is a strategy that they've used or one that they would want to use. So that's one way that we gather the data. Also using social media. The Check-It has various social media sites, and on those sites, as people post or as they like and share, you're able to at least gather data on how many people are accessing the information, which I understand is not an outcome evaluation, but it's kind of a process evaluation. And then it's interactive in the sense that they're able to share having checked it, so you can see how somebody took the information that they learned through the program, identified a potential moment of harm, and strategized on what they might be able to do. So those are a couple of examples.
Yeah. And there's some evidence-informed programs like Green Dot that, Nancy said they have some evaluation. Obviously, they just released a whole summary of it. And then there's also another evidence-informed program called Bringing in the Bystander. And they have evaluation tools that they use for their 1 or 3 unit presentations, and they're online. But again, it looks to be a pre-post. It's a pre-post test also.
Yeah, and Jessie, this is Paul again. I should have also added that when we first got the campus grant, we did a campus-wide survey, and it was the highest response rate of any survey on record at HSU that was specifically looking at people's awareness, understanding, and concerns about sexualized violence on campus. And within that, prevention concepts were held within that survey, although it was mostly focused on people's awareness of whether it even is an issue and what the responses are. And we did that in the first year of the grant, so 4 years ago. And then we just did another survey. And the thing that was named above all else was, in terms of movement, was movement in attitudes, beliefs, and assumptions about what one can or can't do.
above all else was named Check It, that it was through a Check It workshop or a Check It event or something like that that one engaged with the idea that there are things that we can do to help each other out. So that's kind of a big pre and post test. It was a campus-wide survey.
Yeah, so would you call that a campus climate survey, Paula?
Yes, yes, it was.
Okay.
Campus climate survey. So
campus climate surveys are really useful, and you can work with CalCASA, with CDPH to help you create one if you have buy-in from your campus to be able to do that. It looks like Veronica's getting ready to do a campus climate survey, and that's a nice way to kind of look at indicators of community change. Janine was on here from CDPH before, but I think she was having some technical difficulties. But we can send some information out about school campus climate surveys with our resource list.
Yeah, and really to work with the campus, the folks on campus that have the expertise and awareness that there are a lot of rules about doing any kind of, quote, human research.
Yeah.
So we also strategized on ways, because when we're asking somebody about issues such as sexual assault, intimate partner violence, or stalking, that there could be impact. And so built into the development was making sure that throughout the survey resources were offered.
Great. Yeah, that's a big consideration. Thank you. So I'd like to invite Amy. Amy, you had a question. You're getting started. Can you unmute yourself? Is Amy there? Do you have Amy? So Amy said, for someone who's barely getting started onto campus and trying to develop some sort of prevention program, what are some tips you wish you would have known at the beginning but are happy to share with somebody trying to get the campus involved? So thanks, Amy, for that question. And you're lucky because you have a lot of experienced folks on this web forum. So please, you can unmute yourself if there's some tips you'd like to share about getting started with Amy, or you can put them in the chat. I know. Who can I call out for tips? We got Ariana on here, and Lolly, and Claudia, Paula, but Paula, we've been hearing from all these folks who have been doing this work for a while. I think we heard, feel free to unmute yourself and pop on. Oh, Amy, your phone's not working. Okay. So we can answer in the chat, or please unmute yourself by doing *6. I think some of the things that we've heard so far are really building that peer leader, community leader network, and to do the messaging, really building relationships with adult stakeholders if you're on campus, and building allies who supports your work because they can open doors for you on campus. Developing your student leadership group to help with messaging. And pausing in between for other people to come on. Since we're peer sharing, not Jessie sharing. Oh, Claudia, okay. Claudia says that the scenarios you shared help because they're coming across those situations, they feel empowered. So are you talking about the scenarios that were in RSLE's pamphlets or in the game? Yeah.
I want to add on to that. So like when we do like classroom presentations or we're presenting this to our students in tabling, it's essential, it's like very important for you to just create a simple scenario and explain to them how they can be direct, how can they distract, how can they delegate, maybe even ask them a question later. So with classroom presentations, we do watch the Who Are You New Zealand video. I know it's like 8 minutes long, but professors are okay with that. So obviously we give them the warning, but after teaching them the 3Ds, we let them watch it. So it's essential in many ways because, one, it lets them know that you can't consent if you're under the influence of any controlled substance. 2, it allows us to talk a little bit about victim blaming and how it's important not to, and so on and so forth. And 3, that's when they actually get to see someone being an engaged bystander, right? So just emphasizing that was 4 times the sexual assault could have been prevented. Now going back in time, we can see how they were engaged. Can someone tell me, was this person direct? Did they distract? Did they delegate? So really giving them that example and emphasizing that, you know what, you may be different. You may not feel comfortable being direct with someone, but it's okay to delegate. At the end of the day, you can use any of these and make that difference.
Oh, the name of the 8-minute DVD is called Who Are You? And it's a bystander intervention video out of New Zealand. And I think it's people in their young 20s. So whether or not the kind of bar club scene is relatable to who you're working with, or they respond to that, it will be up to you to decide. I think they used to use it or potentially still use it in San Diego. Sarah, if you're still there, do you still use that? Maybe not. And if so, if you do use it, how does it work? And if you don't, what wasn't working? Sarah, yes and no depending on the population, whether they use it. What population do you find that it works for, Sarah? And you can *6 to unmute. So it works well with college and older adults, but it hasn't worked as much for high schoolers. And that may be because they don't relate with the situation. I don't know. And you use it during your crisis intervention training, okay, which, we think about our agency volunteers, and I don't know about other folks, but I think a good portion of them are young adults, college students is what I noticed when I was in the field. Okay. I know for me growing up in a rural area in high school, I wouldn't have necessarily related to what, like a city club scene. But younger students in urban areas or where they, go to clubs as young people might. And it can also be intense during a high school class, Sarah said. And that's true. It's good to use it when you have time to unpack it. So maybe I should tell you what the video is. So it's a group of people, and they get together in an apartment, and they're drinking and playing drinking games, and they go out to a bar, and then you see the perpetrator targeting the woman, giving her more drinks, taking her back to her apartment, and just comes so close to where you think that they're actually gonna show an assault. So I think that might be the intense part. So it's kind of like, so for teachers, or like they're like, it's gonna happen. And then it rewinds the night, and it shows all these different points that bystanders could have intervened: her roommate, her friends, bartender, the bouncer, the guy in line at the club. So it's a great video, but yeah, you got to think about where and how to use it. So let's see.
So definitely know your population. So like for me, I did do classroom presentations for a college class, but there was only one actual college student. The rest were high school students, and it was at a high school. So I knew that I can't show the whole thing. So what I did is I just gave like a quick summary, but really just started from the part where you're going back from the door, and it's letting you, so they can see how people were engaged bystanders. Because like you said, especially for high school in a class, it makes it seem uncomfortable when it seems like you're actually going to watch the whole thing.
Yeah.
So really know your population.
Yeah. So Paula gives a reminder that even in some rural areas, if you're in a college, people are from all over, including cities. So it's still, you know, emphasizing the importance of paying attention to your community. And Sabrina uses it in high school, and they talk about, you know, how it applies to a party scene. So great, that's a common one. And Megan just posted a link to the video. We'll also put it in the resource list. Are there other, kind of along those lines, since unless I'm missing it, I'm not seeing another question right now, but any other, if there's any other tips for Amy, please put them on or come on to hear a different voice than mine. People might appreciate it. But are there other videos that people use for bystander intervention? I mean, it used to be, I feel like when I started this work, and maybe Paula will relate with this, the only videos were the ones you could buy from like the educational learning place. And now we have YouTube, right? I'm aging myself, but like now, you know, we have access to all of these things. And I know Ariana at Casa de Esperanza has a lot of videos that she uses, and a lot of internet resources and YouTube videos that she uses in her program.
I appreciate you brought up the YouTube thing. One of the best bystander things we use that shows the 3Ds is the Chipman video that a lot of people have seen. But we use it in high school and at college, and it really breaks the ice with having a conversation about all the different choices that people are making. And there's lots of things like that on YouTube that have been really accessible, you know, the consent T videos, lots of different things. Also,
yeah, the consent T was one that got brought up.
And then our students here are creating a thing that's, I forget the guy's name, but it's similar to the idea of the consent T, but it's about pizza, and he has there's a TED Talk on it, looking at consent as a pizza in terms of liking different kinds and different stuff and choices you make. And so the students are actually creating a video based on that. They've also created videos, really great kind of animated videos on a whole wide range of things. And we used to think that we had to do a lot of going to, quote, professionals, but it turns out the students turn out some really great and accessible short videos that we can use in training.
Great, and I know some folks are putting up some other ideas for videos. The Pringles Man video. Can somebody tell us about that? And Al Vanaccio, who is a sex educator and has talked about sex and consent. Okay. Can anybody talk about that? I know Sarah Diamond can. He did the pizza talk. Okay,
yeah.
That's what you were just talking about. Okay, got it.
So the
So
students
we
here,
will put together a list of videos that we hear about. We'll gather some ideas from everyone.
in the vernacular, the TED Talk, of course, is long, but well, relatively. But so the students here are taking his concepts and creating a kind of animated video clip to make the point.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Has anybody ever worked with their like graphic design or film department? Are you doing that through a partnership with a film department, or is it your peer leaders that are doing that, Nancy? I'm sorry, Paula.
The best ones have been just done with the peer educators.
Yeah.
We originally, we've also been creating online modules that relate to Title IX for transfer and returning students, in addition to the mandatory orientation for incoming students. And we had worked with the drama and film department to create a video that was part of that online module. It quickly became really dated looking.
Yeah.
And so we've continued to create, but that was the difficulty, the challenge that we ran into is we had kind of too many cooks in the kitchen and too many ideas that were kind of working cross-purpose, so we found that it's easier for us to work with NCRCT and the Check It program, and then we run everything through the Sexual Assault Prevention Committee, which is the CCRT of the OVW grant that pre-existed that grant, and get feedback and then move forward with it, and it's been less cumbersome.
Great, thank you. And Veronica is in Bakersfield, and she said that they've worked with a volunteer who is a film student who did a PSA on victim blaming.
Cool.
As a project for Sexual Assault Awareness Month, which is coming up next week. Claudia is, they're working on filming and making some of their own marketing material, so this is a good time for them. And so if anyone has information to share or tips on doing filming, I know we saw some films that were done at with Tang at Center for the Pacific Asian Family, and so maybe I can connect you with her, Claudia. So that might be helpful. I have to make a note. Oh, now you guys are moving fast. Great. So that's good. Sarah, they're trying to use actual activities folks use. Campaigns on college are great, but they don't work as well for our youth. Now, most of the folks that are, so Nancy is on high school campuses, and Green Dot was on both high school and campus colleges. And I know there are some folks who do campaigns on high school campuses. So Sarah, you bring up the part about when you working with youth who are impacted by violence and they distrust their communities. So let's talk about that, because this is one challenge that I've seen, that I've heard coming up as challenges. And I wish Carl was still with us, but he must have had to go, because I know that this has been something that he has faced, and other people too. So how have, and I think it's either Claudia or Carla who are also working, maybe not in their RPE program, but with youth impacted by violence. So how do some of you have some strategies for how to get past that idea that either you know, it's not my problem, it's not my thing to intervene or to do anything about violence, for, you know, for the many reasons that might be, and also, and or about not focusing so much on authority figures that may not be trusted to help. Or Sarah, also for you, you bring it up, and I wonder if you are finding some strategies for that, some ways that you've connected this information for those communities you're working with. I think one of the things that I think is good about the newer, you know, the more contemporary bystander intervention programs is that they are really focused on showing a lot of ways to intervene. So not just go and tell someone, not just go and tell an authority, but also about distracting, about getting allies. But then if you can't push past not thinking that you should intervene or that you want to, I'm not sure how you get to those. Oh, Sarah, okay. That's been your biggest struggle, and it's something that their department is actively working on, how to have bystander intervention that works for marginalized communities. So I think a lot of the research they're doing on bystander intervention, like the evidence-based and promising practices, is really based around college campuses and high school campuses, but not necessarily digging into how it's working for people in a breakdown of demographics or, you know, race and ethnicity, LGBT, young people, maybe homeless and runaway youth, maybe gang-affiliated youth, incarcerated youth. There's none of that data that I've seen yet, but I think it'd be interesting. Megan or I will do some research around what's going on in other bystander intervention programs. Because I think part of the kind of double-edged sword, I think, I'm speaking for Jessie now and not for, you know, everybody, is that part of the hard thing or the double edge about evidence-based programs and even evidence-informed programs is that they're often tested on a smaller community, which is often, you know, kind of a general high school or, you know, Midwest white kids or something like that that may be very different from the communities that you're serving. So I know another program that uses bystander intervention strategies is the MVP program, which is Mentors in Violence Prevention. And I don't think any of our RPE programs are using the MPV program, though I know that they do use it at Verity, but Kristen isn't on today. So, but that might be when it works a lot with athletes, with the military, and is considered a promising practice and has been shown to be effective with some of those populations, but still not necessarily getting to marginalized communities. So we have some things going on in the chat here. Paula, in high school settings, the last thing you say they would do is get an authority involved. That's not surprising. They like to use distraction methods. So you use the same Ds in all of your programs, particularly around homophobic sexual harassment work. And that's an important thing, bringing in more than bringing in other issues that we know are root causes of violence also. Oppression breeds violence, all forms. So Sabrina, a huge thing she's done with her students who live in gang-affiliated areas is to get them to use bystander intervention that doesn't involve enacting violence themselves. And that's a big one. I think we have this kind of idea from the movies, right, that you jump in and and that's not safe. I know when I was doing bystander intervention work, the difference in how males felt the need to intervene in physical ways, or had more of a feeling that they would be likely to get in a physical altercation if they intervened, even in a nonviolent way, was different. So I thought that was interesting. So the distract methods. Nancy, they don't push authority figures in their program, but they do have one particular librarian that is a really trusted adult. So maybe if there is that person on campus, they could be an example of, a person with authority that folks do trust. Sabrina, distract methods, work without being seen as a snitch. That's another piece. I know I'm personally trying to find the balance with my small children of what's important to tell someone and what, tattletaling. So that's sometimes hard to unwind, and nobody wants to be a snitch. Sarah's going to try that. A lot of youth are gang affiliated and incarcerated. They're resistant to helping. They want to use violence to fight violence. And Sabrina has an activity that worked really well. Sabrina, are you able to unmute yourself and talk? Oh, you have your hand up. Look at that. Nobody put their hand up the whole time, so I stopped looking at it. So Sabrina, we're going to bring you on. And Check It has integrated anti-bias work, which is really great. And a lot of the reason why some people chose not to do some of the other bystander intervention programs, because they didn't include other forms of violence. And I was planning to connect Sabrina and Sarah, so I'll do an email for both of you. Oh, well, Sarah's got her email up there for you. So Sabrina, are you unmuted now?
I believe so. Can you hear me?
Okay, yeah. So
okay.
Go ahead, and then we'll wrap up after you're done.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so I just wanted to share this activity because it actually went really well, and I was a bit surprised at how well it went. So I was working at a school with that's in a big gang-affiliated area in Anaheim. And I had a class of, there were 23 students. There were 2 female students in the class and 21 male students. So as you can imagine, the week that I spent there was, a lot of difficulty keeping them engaged, a lot of, victim blaming, a lot of, normalization of violence. And when we started talking about bystander intervention, a big thing that they kept reiterating was that they didn't feel it was any of their business, they didn't want to be seen as a snitch, etc. They didn't know what to do that could help. So kind of to prove a point to them, I designed this activity where I basically gave them a scenario where they were at a house party and they saw someone who was really drunk being kind of like led down the hallway by someone else, presumably to commit, someone's going to commit a sexual assault against them. And so then I had these 2 boards up, and the night before I had written down on different color Post-it notes 23 different ways that someone could intervene in this situation, the majority of which were distracts. There were a few directs and a few delegates in there just to mix it up, but obviously the majority were distract methods. And I had every student, I just told them to come up and pick a Post-it of an action that they could see themselves doing in this situation. And so I gave them like 5 minutes. Everyone picked out a Post-it that they could see themselves doing. And then I had 2 like wild card Post-its in there where it was a distract method. The only rule was that you couldn't use violence and it had to be school appropriate. And this was after I had explained what the 3Ds were and such. And so then after everyone had picked their Post-it, then I had them role play it out. So the teacher acted as the kind of perpetrator in the situation, and I pretended to be the potential victim. And then one by one, the students had to come up and act out what their Post-it note said. And it actually went really well, and I was a little worried that they were going to think it was kind of stupid and just like not want to participate, but they actually got really into it, and they were using their cell phones as props, and they were all like had such a great time, and they were all laughing, and like they were really getting into it, and they had a really fun time. And I kind of made the point to them that, if I can brainstorm 23 different ways to intervene in this situation, they can find one that is reasonable for them to accomplish, and then they got to practice that to see how it went. So that's just an activity that I was really pleased with, and multiple people said in their evaluations it was their favorite thing that we did the whole 5 days I was there. So just wanted to share that.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much, Sabrina. And that's a nice activity that you can also use going back a little ways, similar to what Paula was talking about, where you can get some evaluation data from that.
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
Yeah, so thank you so much. We are a little over, and I appreciate your forgiving me, hopefully, about being 5 minutes over. Once the chat started going, I forgot to look at the time, so my apologies. We're going to wrap up for today. We will be sending out a resource list of the resources that came up. In the meantime, here are some evidence-informed programs, Green Dot, Bringing in the Bystander, and some promising strategies that are also being used, and a list of campaigns and programs from NSCRC. We will send these out to you again, so you don't have to try to get them all down now. If you have other resources that you'd like to contribute, please email them to Megan or I, and we'll be happy to include them in the follow-up that we send out. This will be also posted on the Hub along with the resource list. So don't forget that the Hub is there with all of our trainings, all of the materials and resources that we sent out during cohort trainings, during the CDPH training and networking meetings. So don't forget to use the Hub. And thank you. Thank you very much. You're going to see pretty soon the monthly update coming from Megan. It will have some dates for upcoming cohort trainings. I have scheduled with most everybody a call, or I've already talked to you, where I'm giving some updates on our training and technical assistance plans. So I'm looking forward to connecting with all of you that I haven't so far in the next month. So with that, I hope everyone has a great day, and we will talk to you next time. Our next webinar will be on RPE in rural communities, and that'll be at the end of May. And after that, our subjects are going to be guided by your feedback. So if there are topics you'd like to address on a web forum like this, please let us know. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.